Tonight we are absolutely thrilled, beyond thrilled, to have Leon Acord. We have got three, not one, not two, but three of his books up at the front. And he is an actor, writer, and burgeoning curmudgeon. Queermudgeon. And apparently a coiner of new words. And we are so happy to have him tonight. I think most of you may know him, so I'm just going to turn the floor right over. And let's give him a big round of applause.
Oh my God, you all showed up. I have to go through with this now, right? When we were talking to Alvin about doing this, I'm like, okay, he suggested, well, have someone come and interview you. I'm like, oh gosh, so many great people in San Francisco. But there's only one person I really wanted to do the interview because he's very funny and he doesn't take bullshit. So I knew I wouldn't be able to bluff my way through this one. So please welcome the artistic director of Theatre Rhinoceros, John Fisher.
No, well, I'll perch.
Okay.
Yes.
Full chair.
No, I'm good. Yay, this is exciting.
Oh, that's right, you can project.
I met so many people. This is so great, and some wonderful surprises, right?
Totally.
I'm so honored to have been asked to do this. Listen, it's great to be here, and I'm thrilled that Lawrence is here. Yay! One of my favorite things was going to cast parties at the house in Collingwood.
Oh, yes.
Right? Just up the hill.
Yep.
And, what's that?
Halloween.
Yes, it was like so much fun up there. And I always thought Collingwood is just like this naughty place for the sidewalk sale after the bars close.
One block down.
Yeah.
Just go down the hill.
Right, but I had no idea that if you went up the hill, there was like this fun house, and the trash wouldn't make it up there because they were too tired. Right?
Too many.
They always took cabs, right?
So
How dare you call me trash?
no, you're no longer trash. So I met Leon working on a very naughty show called A Few Gay Men, and it was just smut. But it was great fun and smutty. And then they hired me to direct Carved in Stone by the great Jeffrey. Yay! And I was like, oh, this will be fun. And I was so honored to do it. And the only reason I did was I needed the money. I didn't say that. But you know what they say about directing? That 9/10 of directing is casting. Right? That's what they say. Cast, right? So I was like, oh, here we go. Who are we going to cast? And they said, well, it's already cast. And I said, well, what am I going to do? And they told me who the cast was, and Leon was going to play the great Quentin Chris. Mm-hmm. I thought, that's so great. That's wonderful, right? And then the rest of the cast filled out. And I had a great experience directing Leon because I didn't give him any notes. He was spot on. No, you weren't.
Really?
And then Jeffrey Hargraves comes to me, the playwright, like a week before we opened. He says, Leon is upset. I said, why? Because you're not directing him.
Did he really?
Yes. No. He said Leon's really upset. He feels like you're ignoring him. I'm like, but he's naming it. He says, well, he just so I had to like make up bullshit direction. This is all they do. They have to come up with bullshit direction, and then they have to take it back 2 days later and say, no, it really wasn't working. It wasn't right. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but I used to like think at the end of run through, I have to give Leon.
No.
It's just like like pick the glass up and hold it like this.
He's not telling you everything. I didn't use the accent in rehearsal until about a week before we opened. And at one point we were doing an all-day rehearsal, and at lunch break, John's like, Leon, the time has come. 2 chairs. And he sat and read the entire script with me during lunch. All the other parts, it's time for the voice. And then afterwards he's like, you're fine, use the accent. But yeah, no, it wasn't I made his life hell. Come on, Joe.
No, and I probably told you to stop doing the accent 2 days later. But anyway.
I wish.
Yeah. So it was a great experience, and I've loved this book so much. I think there's so many things in here. I remember the party we went to. They had Mommy Dearest playing. So it was like being at Moby Dick's, you know, where they have this, like the TV on all the time. It was just like you go to the party and Mommy Dearest is just there for reference, right? Right?
Yes.
And it was like, I was like, you're into Mommy Dearest? Oh my God! And you said, come over here. And like, look at her when she goes to commit suicide, and the handle on the sink bends back. It's such a cheap production.
Oh my God, you remember that?
Yes, I was like, it was like obsessive.
Because every time I watch that movie, I'm like, God, that's such cheap the way that.
I know that you point that out. And so in the book, he talks about how this movie is just like, you know, like a tsunami of hideosity. Like, he invented that word, hideosity.
Actually, Joan Collins invented that word.
Well, okay. Well, I think she's dead now. Isn't
Oh,
well, soon to be. So
See why I asked him?
So I was always so charmed by you two, and then you moved to Los Angeles.
No.
I was so angry and jealous.
I know.
Don't be
And
jealous.
actually did all these great things down there, and but I was so thrilled when you started writing, and also getting Jeffrey's wonderful play published, because we all loved Jeffrey so dearly.
There are copies for sale.
And there are copies for sale. And then to get the opportunity to welcome you back to your hometown.
God, you're making me blush, Joe.
And I, you know, I love that you're from Kokomo. I just have to say, Kokomo, because when I was in grammar school, all we did was make fun of Kokomo in Indiana. I didn't know what it was. Yes, it's a joke.
How did you even hear of Coco?
It's a joke city. It's a
Do you know the musical Applause with Lauren Bacall? Welcome to the theater.
I was listening to it last week, yes. More importantly, you have an album, I know it's from the book, of Woman of the Year,
Yeah.
one of the great mediocre musicals of all time. I know, but we both listened to that musical probably far too often.
Yeah.
Because where was I? I was saying something so important. So then Kokomo. Yes, you're from Kokomo.
Kokomo.
What an economical use of letters. Right? Has there ever been a more economical use of vowels? Yeah.
Yeah, there's only one.
So the book is completely charming. It's a bunch of different things. I think you're going to read from it.
Yeah, one short little chapter.
The chapter on the play.
Yeah.
Which is extremely moving. And so I think what I'll do is just sort of segue into sort of doing setups for you.
Cool.
Because I've reinvented myself as a straight man.
He's a very talented actor.
In comedy. Yes. Yes. No, we'll see. But I sort of feel like I've been with you on the books and enjoying them so much. This one I think is completely unique because it's sort of a deep dive into different parts of your life. As a gentleman myself of a certain age, I can relate to so many aspects of that. But there's something also sort of ageless about it, and I think that for me that comes from sort of this obsessive queer love of movies. You list I think 20 movies. They're not the highbrow gay stuff. It's kind of this junky, trashy shit, which I love, because usually when gay people talk, they talk about, the adaptations of Proust and French. It's very.
I'm in the wrong gay crowds, I guess.
Yeah. And so I love it. It was all just the kind of junky stuff that I love. And then you also collect stuff. You have sort of this John Waters quality to you. And
cool.
That I think is quite wonderful. What was the inspiration for this? Because you've gone from your first book was a memoir, really of the theater, largely, and now you're taking a deeper dive into other aspects of your life.
It was just, I'm a huge Fran Lebowitz fan, and when I was thinking about it, I'm like, God, what is the second book going to be about? And I'm like, well, pull the writers you really like, and I love that her stuff's just like all of her obsessions. I also read a lot of John Waters, his essays, and same thing. It's got one chapter about Pia Zadora, one chapter about Manson killer. It's just all over. Anything that strikes his fancy. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to limit myself. Let's just grab subjects that I like and just start writing.
It's so frank. You don't seem to be hiding anything, which I love about it also.
Oh, I have lots of secrets.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're going to take the time to write it and you want people to read it. Plus, I don't know. I just feel like if I faked it, people would be able to see through it.
Or you'd be writing for a newspaper or something.
Yeah. Well. Who, what, when, where, why?
You're right. I also just felt very struck by your relationship with your parents and how that evolved. And of course, I noticed a little about that. Gay people don't really talk about their parents except their coming out story, which is always awful. And then we move on to drinks and going back to watching Mommy Dearest. But you sort of take this wonderful journey with your mother, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, she's come a long way. She's, God, when I first came out, you want to hear all this?
Yeah.
She was great when I first came out. This was back in, the dark ages of toll calls. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
I had a good friend in high school who was really open-minded, and he was the one I came out to first, and we talked a lot. And we got the phone bill one month, and my mom's like, "What the hell, Leon? Why are you calling Mike so much?" I'm like, "Oh, I have to talk to someone, and I don't, he's the only one who really understands." And she's like, "Well, why don't you talk to us?" It's like, "Well, I don't think you would understand." And the light bulb went over her head. At that time, she was like really supportive. She's like, "Well, do you want to see a shrink?" "No." "Okay, well, we kind of suspected and we're okay." And then we didn't talk about it for about 6 months. And then one day, just out of the blue, actually, I was the tenor section leader in choir, and I got demoted. And for some reason, Mom thought it was because I was gay. Just out of the blue, we were driving in her car one day, and she just, this long pause, and she's like, "Well, you'll never accomplish anything as long as you're that way." Now, this was 50 years. She is the most fabulous woman now. She loves Lawrence. My parents love Lawrence, my husband, I think, more than me.
I do.
They think he's younger than I am, which he's not. But no, they've really come a long way. And kind of, I always think of my parents when I think of America and how America's evolved in terms of queer rights over the past 40, 50 years, that I'm really lucky.
Yeah, I mean, since coming out, since realizing what's going on, and I was very lucky to be born in the Bay Area, so for me, coming to San Francisco, I was crossing the Bay.
Nice. Oh my God.
And then to read and hear about your journey, and I think your first partner went home.
Yeah.
It was sort of overwhelmed.
Yeah. He was, I moved here in December of 84 with my Indiana boyfriend. Actually, it was a lot more complicated than him just getting, He was not happy here, and then he ended up having an affair with someone he worked with. And actually, that guy moved back to Indiana with him.
Oh, no.
I'm like, why would you leave San Francisco to go to Indianapolis? Are you fucking nuts? But yeah, I did, and yeah.
You're getting the extras, because I don't think that's in here.
Oh yeah, that's in
This is the
You have to
director's features.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hog the questions, and also I do want to hear you read, because I think that's always a treat to hear the author read their stuff, especially if the author's an actor.
Oh yeah, I'll take you. No pressure.
Well, I'll relieve some of the pressure. I stumbled into an Ethan Hawke reading one of his novels, and he read about 2 sentences, and he goes, "God, this is tough," and God, I'm gonna lose my voice. I'm like, and then somebody shouted, "You're an actor, do it!"
Don't get any ideas.
Yeah. So I will vouch for a man who can project. I've never heard you mic'd.
You don't use mics in San Francisco.
No, you don't do mics. You just shout. It's old stuff.
Oh yes.
Which I thought was so interesting.
Ryan White. Yeah, my mom's. I'm from Kokomo. I don't know how many of you remember Ryan White. He was a kid with AIDS in the school system in Kokomo, and my mom's sister was on a committee to have him thrown out of school. And was like they were like selling what were they called? The pig belly stoves. They were like auctioning something off to raise money to take him to court. And my mom, I'd never seen her so outraged. We never really talked about the gay thing after the whole, you'll never accomplish anything. And I was home for Christmas one year, and we just were having the Baileys, which was our want. And she just started talking about it, and she was enraged. And that was really what started, thank you, Ryan White, just conversations initially about AIDS and then about being gay and then living in San Francisco. And it just kind of opened her up and opened dialogue. Do I need this? Can you hear me? Okay. And it was from then, just every time I would come home, we would talk a little bit more. I could tell, that you don't want to push her past her comfort level, but each time I went home, her comfort level was a little further left. And I'm so lucky now; they totally accept me and Lawrence. And I mean, every time I go home without Lawrence, they seem really disappointed.
Lawrence, this is how I met Lawrence. We were holding auditions for like the one role that wasn't cast.
Right.
This is my 90% contribution to cast for one role. And suddenly Lawrence comes through the door with all these resumes saying, to me, you're me, Mr. DeMille, we have your first. I was like, who is this person? I want you to be in the play. Too much fun. So, and then it's so funny, you talking there also about queer marriage, and I've been married forever too. But, well, I think you use a phrase which is almost my phrase, mine and Michael's, which was like, we don't really want that.
Yeah.
Because that's what straight people do.
I remember, pretty much through the 80s. I don't remember really when it started to shift, but there was this kind of mentality. It's like, why the hell would we want to get married?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Why we would want to do something that doesn't? But something shifted. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think was the thing that kind of shifted us?
I know the thing that didn't shift me was Gavin Newsom. I was like, well, who is he to hand out marriage? Come on. And then everybody lined up. I'm like, oh, come on. Silly
Yeah.
things, blah, blah, blah. But what really shifted me was how much that pissed everybody else off. In places like Utah, which I wasn't aware was part of California. Suddenly they were sending money to the prop. I was like,
Yeah.
well, now I want it. Right? And
Actually, now that you say that, that's true. It was like being told you can't have it, and it was like, well, fuck you, we're going to get it.
Right. And I just think of so many people who consider themselves secular who were like, that's not my identity. And then suddenly they're being loaded onto a boxcar because somebody else has said it is.
Well, the
And
weird
it's like, don't say no to me.
The weird thing is that as much as I we don't want to get married, all I could think about in my early 20s is I've got to settle down. I got to find a husband. Not a husband, but yeah. And I want to have someone to have Christmas with. That whole 20-year-old.
Yeah. So it's something.
All right.
And then I don't think you're smart.
Oh, well, don't clap yet. This is from a chapter called My First Plague. COVID? Terrifying. Monkeypox? Unnerving. But this isn't my first time at the rodeo. In fact, I can barely remember a time before that first public health scourge of my lifetime, AIDS. I graduated high school in May 1981 at age 17. The day after graduation, I moved to Indianapolis to escape both farm life and parents not yet able to handle an openly gay son. Compared to life on the farm, Indianapolis was the big city. When I got there, I was shocked, not only to discover so many others like me, but that they were all having a hell of a good time. The summer of 1981, the last few months before the specter began to rise. Maybe it was the residual effects of the sexual revolution or the fading disco era, Or maybe it was because I was a naive former farm boy. But gay men were seemingly everywhere. They had their own neighborhoods, from Homo Heights uptown to faggot flats closer downtown. Businesses, neighborhood societies. Now, being out wasn't an alternative lifestyle in those days. It was punk. You were a walking, talking political statement. We were beginning to get some acceptance, but we were still a mysterious other to most. Yes, sex was omnipresent, but it was about more in those post-Stonewall years. It was the realization that with self-acceptance came great freedom. Yes, some of us chose to celebrate at bars and bathhouses, and others of us opened art galleries, restaurants, started magazines, became designers, writers, actors. But marriage? Why would we want to do something stupid like that? We were thrilled to be exempt from society's rules. To the rest of the world, we knew how to be just quiet enough. We were still underground in most places, so we learned an unspoken code, a way of knowing when we found ourselves with our own kind. To the straight urban crowd, we were chic. An asset at any party or office. Disco may be dead, but we were really beginning to thrive. New York Times, July 1981. Doctors in New York and California have diagnosed among homosexual men 41 cases of a rare and often rapidly fatal form of cancer. 8 of the victims died less than 24 months after the diagnosis was made. I still remember my first thought when I read that, flippant though it was. Oh, of course, gays can't get some run-of-the-mill cancer. Oh no, we have to get some rare tropical disease. How many conversations during those next few months began with, have you heard about this gay thing? Yet almost all the guys in my circle felt insulated from it, and it was happening in New York and San Francisco. Nobody knew anyone here with this mystery disease. Condoms hadn't entered the discussion. Safe sex, the term hadn't yet been coined. This disease didn't even have a name. Hell, the President of the United States refused to even address the crisis. Boo. Thank you. AIDS, with a Y, was still just an over-the-counter diet supplement. Now, can you imagine a time when someone might have actually said, I'm going to run down to the corner drugstore and pick me up some AIDS? Fall 1982. Joan Collins appears on the cover of Us magazine. Along the top of the cover, a banner headline, Mysterious Cancer That's Killing Gay Men. It was absurd, I thought. You can't catch cancer. I began to wonder, well, maybe gay people are defective. Maybe there's something in our DNA that's unbalanced and our bodies are breaking down. And I wasn't the only one with the crazy theory. It's the guys who use poppers. That's what causes it. Oh, you only have to worry if you swallow. Sounds like a few gay men, doesn't it? It's the government. They're testing a new biological weapon. And those were the comments from the gay guys. Forget about the straight bigots and zealots who claimed it was a curse from God. Yet, most guys in Indianapolis still thought they were safe. By 1983, AIDS had a name. I had a new boyfriend. But in Indianapolis, safe sex still hadn't seemed necessary. In 1984, we moved to San Francisco. There was no living in denial at ground zero. Only endless obituaries in the Bay Area Reporter. For the first time in my life, AIDS seemed real. It was inescapable. And it was scary to be in a city where 75% of the men were believed to be HIV positive. But it was almost comforting. It was also almost comforting to live in a place where AIDS was on the front page of the newspaper and opened the local news almost every single day without judgment. My new boyfriend, he couldn't take it. 6 months later, he moved back home. About a year later, he learned that being back in Indiana didn't make him safe. 2 years after that, he was dead. What would life be like if AIDS had never happened? I can't imagine. You bet I practice safe sex now. In fact, I'm wearing a condom as I write this. Could you laugh? On a personal note, despite being openly gay, my parents never addressed my homosexuality after I came out. At most, my mom called it my attitude, or being that way. But I was from Kokomo, Indiana, Ryan White's hometown. And when my aunt began raising money to have Ryan thrown out of school for having AIDS, which he contracted through a blood transfusion, my mom was incensed. She and I talked about AIDS for the first time, and that led to talking about being gay. And that eventually led to the totally cool parents I have today. AIDS is no longer a death sentence, and it's hard to believe the advances I have seen in gay rights in my lifetime. We're living in a gay new world. Those hundreds of thousands of men and women did not die in vain. They were the martyrs. Would gay marriage be a reality today if AIDS hadn't forced gay issues onto the nightly news? If gay men hadn't fought for the right to be at their lovers' sides? Would domestic partnership have evolved? AIDS humanized us in the eyes of many and reminded us of our own mortality. The party ends for everyone, eventually, no matter what. But sometimes, I really do miss those early days, when we were more than an alternative lifestyle, when being gay raised eyebrows, when we were the other, when we were punk.
Yeah!
Do you remember, I'm sorry to interrupt, do you remember how we were like, oh my God, John Fisher's in the show! We get to work with John Fisher! Because at the time it was Medea. I mean, everyone.
He was my celebrity crush.
We were like, how do we work with John Fisher? Oh my God, he's like the only one who's created a long-running hit that's not called Beach Blanket Babylon. Sheer madness. It's like, oh my, you were what we aspired to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just needed the money. Yeah, it was just a whole bunch of interviews put on stage, and the actors were just so charming.
Do you remember 3 days before we opened? Because Ronnie Larson, who directed it, it was originally just going to be a panel of like us talking and answering questions. And like 3 days before we opened, Ronnie's like, "This isn't working. We've got to reblock this whole thing." And
Reblock? He had to give it block.
well, we had to block it.
Yeah,
And
there
like
was no blocking.
within 3 days, I think you helped him though. I mean, I don't know. I don't
Well, he blocked the show in a day. In one day.
And we learned it in 2.
And there's never been so much blocking in a show before. And
right?
yeah, there's
Okay, you're right at the front of the stage.
constant motion. And the second day, he was like, "No, that's not where you go."
Throwing the script across.
He was like furious, screaming at people.
I remember going back and I will get it by opening night.
Do you remember the dress rehearsal where we like totally lost where we were and we're like, we were all sitting on stage like, well, I'm not going to talk.
Somebody should talk, yeah. The book is so rich in material and so much fun to read and so accessible. Anything? Yes.
Do another short reading.
Ask me some questions and I'll see if I can find something.
Oh, maybe I'll learn something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Really short.
Some juicy shorties, yeah.
A lot of this is based on following you on Facebook, but you're unafraid, and I just admire that about you, and I'm wondering where that comes from.
Because I was bullied and teased for being gay growing up. I was kind of like, you gonna call me a lib? Oh boy, that really hurts. You know, I've been called every name in the book. That's why with the whole, do I dare even open this can of worms? The thing with Cindy Brady.
Yeah.
You know, I think she sent me that message thinking I would like cower and like, oh my God, she called me a faggot. No.
Little did she know.
No. And also I think some DNA from my dad. My dad's like was a UAW, the president of the local UAW. He's very outspoken. And I just don't like assholes. I don't like bullshit. And I don't know. It's easy on social media though. I don't know. If I had to confront these people face to face, I don't know if I'd be quite so ballsy.
I don't know. It's the opposite. I think you would. I mean, because people can be the same back. They can be unafraid in their response, and you don't. You say what you want, and I love it.
She's right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Oh, before we go further, I want to introduce my 2 editors who are both here tonight. Courtney Clayton.
Hi, I'm Jen. Nice to meet you.
And Jim, whose last name I can never pronounce correctly, Garagolino.
Garliana. Just Garliana.
It's much simpler than we think.
Just,
I know, I was
it's
trying
just
to make it-
Genji. That's
Genji.
it.
Well, we
Genji.
get nervous
Okay.
approaching it, and that's where it falls apart.
They,
Don't get nervous.
both there did the
Just
first book.
swallow and you know, one thing, I just hit on this because I have this idea of you as one thing, and I've been sort of seeing you on stage and working with you and hanging out with you for a while, and then I was up at your house, and I went into some closet or corner or someplace, and there was the Wonder Woman stuff.
Oh, one room. It was the room.
It was in her whole room.
It was the room.
Oh.
In I don't know where you live now, but in that first apartment in LA, there was like, you walk down the hall and there was the Wonder Woman room.
Yeah, by that point.
Amazing.
And, you know, having such respect and admiration for you, it was like, how do I reconcile this? Because I just, in my brain, it was just the worst kind of dreck. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, so you're a drag queen? And you're like, no, I do Wonder Woman. You know, and I was like, something
And flats. It's not drag if you wear flats.
So I wonder, and it maybe just a little bit of this, if you
Yeah, I
want
can
to
read like
all-
part of it.
Yeah, read why Wonder Woman. Because,
If you know her creator, you kind of, if you're queer,
yeah.
you've got to kind of, I don't know if you know about, but let me see if I can. He was polyamorous. He had a wife, and they also had a lady who lived with them, and he had children with both. And they all lived in the same house. This was like in the 30s, if you can imagine. And he was a huge, I mean, his philosophy was he thought women should run the world. Because that, yeah, anyway, all right.
I think we're coming to that more and more.
I wish women
Yeah.
would do a much better job than we've done.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding, that's not a joke.
No,
Jesus.
no,
We're all on our
Okay, we'll just start, and then when you get bored, tell me and I'll stop. Since childhood, this gay man's diva of choice has been DC Comics' Wonder Woman, created by William Moulton Marston over 80 years ago. Famed comic book artist writer George Perez, who chronicled Wonder Woman for the 1980s, described her thusly, quote, a star-spangled, I can never say this word.
Science fiction.
No, and
It starts with a amalgam.
The amalgam, I can never say that word. A star-spangled amalgam of fantasy, American patriotism, ancient myth, science fiction, and even a not-so-subtle hint of kinkiness. I'm frequently asked, why Wonder Woman? It's a question I've pondered a lot over the decades. Alas, there isn't one simple answer. As a gay kid, I wanted a role model who exhibited strength without assholism. That's certainly one reason. I could write an entire book just unpacking that theory. But this is about her, not me. Another reason I identified with Diana was her backstory. Here's someone with a charmed life, a princess no less, living in such a utopia that it was literally named Paradise Island. The name Themyscira came later. Yet despite this blessed existence, Diana felt restless and longed for more, to experience life in man's world, to use her talents and skills for a greater good. So she left paradise behind and journeyed to a brand new world. I'm going to skip that part. I grew up in rural Indiana, which is downright bucolic. Yet for as long as I can remember, I longed to leave it behind, to move to the big city, to experience different lifestyles and cultures, so long as I could come back home to visit. As soon as I read my very first Wonder Woman comic book, how I wished for an invisible jet of my own that would allow me to live in both worlds. And then there's her status as an LGBTQ icon. Long before I ever heard the term gender roles, I relished how Diana Prince turned sexual stereotypes and conventions on their heads. Her creator, Marston, certainly defied convention with his polyamorous home life, but that's yet another book. I enjoyed the Super Friends cartoon, but once the TV show starring Linda Carter debuted in 1975, this 12-year-old was a deeply committed fanatic. The series fell apart a bit after it moved to CBS and was updated to the 1970s, but its first season on ABC, set during World War II in the 1940s, remained perhaps the most faithful adaptation of an original comic book property to TV or film until Watchmen. And Linda Carter, as Wonder Woman, Maybe the most ideal Hollywood casting since Vivian Leigh won the role of Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. I'm sure I'm not the only gay boy who spun himself dizzy back then emulating her explosive costume change, Alvin, was I? Unlike her BAM pal colleagues, Wonder Woman used force and might as a last resort. She almost always saw the potential for good in even the most worst villains and preferred, oh God, that was a horrible sentence, and preferred to resolve conflicts with truth and reason instead of fisticuffs. Many early Wonder Woman tales didn't end with the criminal going to jail because Diana was just as interested in forgiveness, redemption, and transformation. She felt anyone could change for the better and even convinced vile Nazi Baroness Paula von Gunther to change her evil ways and use her genius for the good of humanity. It really appealed to this young pacifist. Unfortunately, the pacifist warrior aspect of her character can be particularly vexing for some of her writers and can make creating an exciting conclusion to a Wonder Woman tale especially challenging. Don't believe me? Just watch the frustrating Wonder Woman 1984. Perhaps this is why the character was revamped by DC in the mid-80s. One more paragraph. I never gave up on Marston's original heroine, the peace-loving character I grew up with. So I was thrilled in 2017 when the long-awaited, well-received feature film Wonder Woman restored a bit of that original sense of the character. I was even more thrilled that Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot brought her a new level of respect and appreciation, especially since she spent many of her decades languishing, suffering from creative teams that didn't get her, constant revamps of origin and character, and a publishing company that often treated her as an afterthought. There's more about
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear you read it because you bring a drama to it that's there. You essentially, I think the thing that I enjoyed most about it is what I never understood is my whole experience of Linda Evans was fighting like.
Linda Evans? That's Linda Carter. Oh my God.
Linda Evans was on TV.
Crystal Carey.
Yes.
Bye.
Mr. DeMille. I was fighting the 70s villains. I never knew that Wonder Woman fought Nazis.
Yeah.
From the TV series.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that because I think the Nazis were our last real enemies.
Yeah.
You know,
the last honest war.
The last honest war, as Struggle put it, the good war,
yeah.
Carter, was fighting these villains in like polyester 70s suits.
Right. And brown sedans and turtlenecks.
Right. It's like my father.
Yeah.
Like, don't fight my father. It's and so I really appreciated that you restored that knowledge.
That play you did with Jeffrey about the Nazis, I forget the name of it. It was two plays with a guy, I'm old, I can't remember. When I walked into Theatre Rhino and saw the giant Nazi flag, it was kind of like, oh my God, this is so cool. But then I'm like, but not in the way she thinks. But I sat there through the whole play wanting to like spin around and jump up on stage and pull it down and do a Christopher Plummer and rip it in half.
Christopher Plummer, that's right. So I just had a question because I'm not sure I've ever been at a reading where the editors were present.
Oh no!
I'm just so curious.
Go.
I think it's beautifully written, and it's as I say, I keep getting back to accessible. It's a very accessible book, and I'm just curious. What was the process?
Please help me be a good writer.
What did you guys bring to it?
I didn't do much. Did you do much? I didn't do much. I just a few misplaced modifiers and that kind of thing.
Oxford commas, Courtney.
Oxford commas.
Oxford commas.
I made sure we had the Oxford comma in, but that's just me. No, I've edited a couple of books and I've had to really push prose around so it's not too linear and it's not this and it's not that. But I don't remember doing very. I just every once in a while I'd complain about something.
That's not the answer I wanted.
Okay.
Ask her.
I wanted it was 700 pages long.
No, it was
hideously
not.
boring. And
That was the first book.
Okay, Jen, tell us you wrote this, right?
No. There were a lot of exclamation points. which we took out. I don't know about you.
Oh, that's
but
interesting. I don't remember. Maybe you got to them first.
I might have. I think I took out like 70% of them.
Yeah.
And there were some areas where he would just like describe like what happened, and I was like, no, what were you feeling? Like this whole book is about you as a person, and like telling me like what your experience led you to, and you just kind of said we got there at this time, we did this and we did that, and then we're gone. And whoa, where's the rest of it? So a couple of areas like that.
Were you the one who told me that exclamation points are like laughing at your own joke?
No.
I wish I could remember who told me that. Isn't it with you? I mean,
Well,
this
no,
is John Fisher. I
thank
have
you.
to be.
I always appreciate good behavior with me. But I really feel like that's why it's so wonderful to hear you read it, because that's like putting the two of them together. But yeah, I really felt like I was being exposed to whole, not secrets, but just sort of explanations and expansions.
And exclamations.
Yes, and exclamations. I just, I put an exclamation after every title of everything I've ever written. I'm like appalled.
Actually, that did have, didn't it? Medea? No? Combat.
Because it's like bookstores are disappearing, and this is a gay bookstore. And I buy my husband's Christmas presents here because the books aren't just, Tales of the City, Armistead Mall,
Right.
and that makes it a gay bookstore. There's like academic stuff up there.
Oh.
There's smart stuff up there. And this is like a really good gay book.
So maybe we should wrap early so y'all can browse and buy some
Well,
books.
I recommend it because I think that this is such a necessary part of the Castro, and it kind of almost disappeared.
It did.
Yeah, it was a different light.
Yeah.
Dog-eared.
And then it was dog-eared, and then I thought,
It went away for a little while, didn't it? Or has it
So I don't know.
I think between different light and dog ear, it went away a little bit.
Yeah, and I was like, so we're gonna get yogurt or something,
Oh,
just what we need, like gay yogurt.
Were you in San Francisco in the 80s? There were 3 gay bookstores within 2 blocks of the Castro.
And there were two drama bookstores.
Yes.
In San Francisco, one by the Geary Theatre, or whatever it's called now. Yeah, and humor's dead in the United States. we can't take risks anymore.
Have you watched the news today?
Oh yeah, the serious stuff is all a joke. Yeah, but well, thank you so much.
That was the fastest hour.
I know.